Well, good evening. The time is 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, November 21st, 2024, and I'm calling the Village of Martins Additions Council meeting to order. Okay, first up on the agenda tonight is the audit presentation on our VMA fiscal year 2024 by CPA Eva Webb. So thank you, Eva. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I just shared my screen. I just want to make sure everybody can see it.
Got it.
We can.
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to do a brief presentation on the fiscal year 24 audit results for the village. So I do always like to stop on the independent auditor's report and go through that in a little more detail. This is essentially what you pay us for, right? So I like to remind you down here at the very bottom, management is responsible for the financial statements, and all we do as the auditors is express an opinion on those financial statements. So you'll see back up here at the top in the second paragraph, it says, in our opinion, financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. So what that means is that the village received a clean, unmodified audit opinion, which is the best audit opinion you can get. We did date everything October 28th. Was previously submitted to the state of Maryland as required by law, so you guys are in compliance. So I'm going to skip through the next several pages, the management discussion and analysis, because that's a summary of what we're going to talk about. If you guys want to flip to Exhibit A1, if you have a paper copy, I'm going to scroll to it here. So Exhibit A1 is the statement of net position. And so if you're in a for-profit, this is sort of your balance sheet. It lists all of the assets, all of the liabilities, and the difference between those two is what's known as net position. So you will see two columns. I'm going to focus on the fiscal year 24 results because that's what we're here tonight to talk about. But the fiscal year 23 results are included, so you can kind of get a picture of how the village is doing. So about halfway down the page, you'll see the Village of Martins Additions has just a little bit under $7 million of assets. And if you look in the rows above that, these are the categories of assets that the village has. So I always like to point out the big one, right? So you have a little over $5.6 million in investments at June 30, 2024. Some of the other things you have include the capital assets of about $972,000. So on the other side, if you come down about 3/4 of the way down the page, you'll see a row called total liabilities. And so at any point in time, any organization or town, village is going to have liabilities. You have about $256,000 on June 30, 2024. And if you look up above, these are the different categories. So the largest piece for you is that state tax credit liability. That's the WIN liability from several years ago that you elected to pay over the 80 quarters. So the remaining balance on that, the long-term portion, is $152,000. You also have a pretty big number at June 30, 2024, sitting in deferred inflows, $561,000. That is the unspent ARPA funds at the end of fiscal year 24. So we'll talk about those in a few minutes, but that's what that balance represents. So if you take your assets, subtract your liabilities and your deferred inflows, the village's net position at the end of last year was $6,144,000. Of that number, 5.1 million is unrestricted. That's a great place to be. Statement, Exhibit A2, if you're following along on paper. This is the statement of program activities. And so this statement's a little bit different than what you would normally see. This statement starts with expenses. So that very first column has on the left-hand side the different activities of the government, right? So we know we have general government, building and zoning, public works, public safety. It shows you for each of those categories what the expenses were in fiscal year 24. So the total expenses last year were a little over $883,000. And then there are other columns for how you generate revenue, right? So you do know you charge for certain services that generated about 18,000. You also receive operating grants and contributions, and that totaled about 451,000 last year. And so what that fifth column shows is that you didn't generate enough in revenues to support the expenses. So you have these general revenues at the bottom, which are your income taxes, your property taxes, and your interest. And so that covers all of those expenses and then some. So you'll see last year your total general revenues were 1,367,000. So the town earned, had a change in net position or net income last year of $952,000, which is a phenomenal year, right? So you added almost $1 million to your coffers last year. So the next two statements are the fund level financial statements, Exhibit A4 and A5. So, this is what's really confusing about local government. So you have the full accrual statements at Exhibit A1 and A2, and then you have the fund level financial statements at Exhibit A4 and A5. And essentially, the fund level is how you budget, right? So you don't budget for long-term debt, you budget for your loan payments. You don't budget for capital assets, you budget for the expenditures. So on this statement, very similar numbers. Your assets are a little under 6 million. You still have liabilities. Those inflows related to ARPA were still 562,000. So your total fund balance last year was 5.3 million. And so there at the bottom of Exhibit A4 is the reconciliation between the two sets of financial statements. Same thing on the fund level, Exhibit A5, your revenues last year at a fund level were 1.8 million, your expenditures were 906,000. So you had an excess of revenues last year of 930,000. So that's it. There's another reconciliation in here, A6, to get you from the fund level financial statements to the full accrual. Next 16 pages, just a couple, right? The next 16 pages are the notes to the financial statements. I usually only talk about anything significant, and so there are only a couple. I did want to point out on page 7 of Exhibit A7, you do have a technical violation of state statute here at the bottom of this page. So your certificate of deposit balance is being reinvested. So at the end, the interest being earned is being reinvested. So you only have FDIC insurance up to $250,000. The balance at the end of June was $270,000. State statute requires you to either be covered by FDIC insurance or be collateralized. So that $20,000 is exposed. You may very well and will probably very likely receive a letter from the state of Maryland asking for you to correct that. So we would just recommend when that certificate of deposit is renewed the next time, that either you change it so that you receive a check for the interest, or you move the balance that's over and above 250,000 out and put it in a different bank account. The next note is note 3E on page 12. So just as a reminder, the town does have future liabilities related to the office lease, the space that a lot of you are sitting in this evening. And these are the future payments. So you owe the landlord almost $30,000 for fiscal year 25, and then $27,000 for fiscal year 26. On page 15, we talked about that WIN liability. That was either a lump sum payment could have been made at the time it was assessed by the state, or you could make payments over future periods. Your council elected to make future payments, so the balance at the end of the current year still is about 162,000, and your commitments for fiscal year 25 are almost 10,000. The ARPA funds, which I'm sure you guys are so tired of talking about, right? Like, we cannot wait until after December 31st of this year, because that is when you either have to have had it expended or have it obligated, meaning signed contracts. So hopefully you guys have a plan for expending that remaining 561,000 by the end of December. The last statement I wanted to very briefly touch upon is the new upcoming accounting standard related to compensated absences. There are some technical changes in the standard, and so we will communicate with Michael as we learn a little bit more about it, as we determine how it might impact the village. We will let you know, but just to be on the horizon that may adjust the balances that have to be reported. The exciting part is always the budget versus actual comparison for you guys, right? So I always go to the very last line. You, as a council, budgeted for a little under $1 million of revenue last year. You received $1 million of revenue. So you were $170,000 more than you anticipated. And a big chunk of that was interest, right? Because of the favorable interest rates last year. Another large chunk was that the ARPA fund, the Rescue Plan Fund funding. On the expenditure side, you were in the same situation. You had budgeted for $3.4 million of expenditures and only spent about $906,000. The largest piece there is your designated funds, which are the $2.5 million for capital type projects. And you only spent about $58,000 last year. The final piece this year was a new audit report. Because you are spending those federal funds, we did have to include this Yellow Book Government Auditing Standards report. Nothing exciting there. It's just sort of a check the box to make sure that when you are receiving federal funds and expending them, just to get included. And then very briefly, I did want to go over the 2-page letter. This is a required communication letter. It's just our time to point out, it was a pleasure working with Michael and Nicole this year. We didn't have any difficulties. I think this was the smoothest audit we'd had in a couple of years. Not that we'd ever had too many problems. The correct and uncorrected misstatements, this is where we tell you if we had to make any material adjustments during the audit. There were 2, but nothing really out of the ordinary. This was just due to timing, recording additional receivables. And anything else that came up that was significant, there wasn't anything else. So overall, a very good year.
Good. We like to hear that.
Yes, yes.
And I will say that we have a plan for that CD that has been reinvesting the earnings. That comes up for renewal at the end of the year. So we have a plan to cash that out.
Okay, great. Yeah, usually when the state sends you, the Department of Legislative Services will follow up on that. They will send you an email. And usually by the time you get the letter or the email, it's been taken care of. So that's all you will need to do is just respond to how you took care of the violation.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Eva. I really like those numbers. And I'm glad to hear it was a smooth audit process. Would you be open to some questions from council? I see our treasurer.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Lander has his hand up.
I just stopped sharing, but let me reshare here. Sorry about that. Yes. Did someone have a question in the chat? I never see them when I'm presenting.
Sure. This is Jeff Blander. Jeff, unmuted. Okay, he's unmuted. He's our treasurer on the council.
Yes. Hi, Jeff.
How are you? What
doing well.
What a delight. I know that VMA is not a problem for you in terms of the finances, and obviously it's extremely positive news, no pun intended, in terms of the audit. I guess two very quick things, and Michael, you may be getting this a bit later in your manager's report. Just to also cover that over 561 thousand that we need to have committed by the end of the year. If you could share on that now or later, but just confidence in that. And then I think this is a separate thing that I know has been kind of on the treasurer report that we've been issuing. There's this kerfluffle, which is saying it lightly, about the rezoning piece. And while we're in great financial shape now, I think there's concern about if there is a rezoning effort that happens, what could and how might that impact our balance sheet. And this is not the time or place to have that discussion, but I just wanted to put that out there for the council that, if I don't know if this is something that you could support or maybe some recommendations, but it would be helpful that as we start to hear more and more about what the rezoning plans are, we've talked about the possibility of modeling or forecasting what the impact might be. And we're not saying it would be overly complicated, but Arthur, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have some idea or way of understanding like the percentage of high income earners or where we're getting a significant part of our revenue from the income, and without identifying them. But the idea is if we could model, for example, certain things about that and certain things about expenses we might incur because of rezoning and how that might impact further need for infrastructure spend, it would just be good to have a little bit of an understanding of the financial health if all of a sudden we were hit with that scenario, if that makes sense.
Sure. I hadn't heard anything about the rezoning. So I would like to hear more about that before I have any opinions on it. But we have always felt that, and Arthur, I think this goes back years and years, and why you budget so conservatively for income taxes. Because you get no information about which homeowner, right? Like you do not know who is generating the income tax revenue within your town. We have always felt that it could potentially be one or two that really increase that number significantly for a year or two. So I'm not sure how you would go about modeling that, but the one thing you guys do have is a very low, like look at this number, 38,000 of property taxes. So if you did have an income tax reduction, there's always the case to be made here too. Nobody likes to raise taxes, right? Sorry.
I was going to say, you might want to, I don't know if you want to be running for council that year.
I would never run for an elected official, but if there was ever a downturn in this number, luckily, look at your $1.3 million plus 451,000 up here. So, $2 million and your expenses are less. So, your expenses can always adjust as well if your revenue adjusts. Lots of different options there, Jeffrey, and we could walk through those. Yeah.
Cool. And like I said, another time, I want to take up time. And then Michael, did you want to address the the remaining funds, the over 560,000, and then the rest? While there's so much to talk about in the weeds, just amazing. The fiscal health is so strong, and everything else I think could be discussed offline from here. Thanks.
That 560,000 is of last June. So we're now 6 months into that.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
We're as you'll remember, that number is from the end of last fiscal year, June 30th. Since then, for this budget, FY25, we have increased the kind of line items that we're paying with ARPA funds. And we have a burn rate of about $50,000 a month right now. So we're going to end the calendar year carrying over the rest on current contracts. We'll have about, I think, $250,000 left in that money that we're carrying over into next calendar year. With the burn rate, again, about $50,000 a month for our current contracts. That number might come, that burn rate might come down a little bit as we're paying for some things that aren't contracted right now with ARPA funds, but in the new year, we won't be able to do that anymore. It'll just be the contracted, everything we have a contract, waste management is being paid for with ARPA funds. And that I'm confident we'll be able to burn through the rest of that money. At that rate, you know, it's about 5 months into calendar year 2025.
But the funds are, what's the phrase they use? Not obligated.
Obligated.
Yeah, that's the right word. Yep.
That's not the word.
So I
Obligated.
would just caution you, the council approved those contracts, Michael, in the fiscal year 25 budget. They approved the ARPA fund expenditures by contract, like waste management contract was approved. Okay. So
Yes.
as long as that's the case, you should not have any issues.
Yeah,
But yes, signed contracts are a must.
Yeah, we'll have signed contracts for everyone that we're obligating that money to next calendar year. So all of that will be being burnt.
Yeah, because if you don't spend it all, it has to go back. Whatever is unspent has to be returned to the Department
By
of
the end
Treasury.
of next year. Yep.
And nobody, the other thing, Jeffrey, where nobody likes to return money to the government.
There's a whole other discussion on that because I work
Right.
in the State Department, and believe me, I'm aware of the idea of anything that would be excess income through a government partner would have to go back to the U.S. Treasury.
Right.
We are on top of this. So very quickly, Michael. Again, I don't want to prolong this discussion. We could take it offline, but just so the residents that are online are very clear and understanding. So we have signed contracts, but it needs to be spent by the end of the next calendar year. Is that correct? So really, are we looking at zero risk, or what is the risk of the idea that we wouldn't spend this? It's the idea that it wasn't obligated this year to contracts, or if a contract is canceled. Is that sort of the risk here? Is that if it's obligated by the end of this year, but something happens with a contractor, then we may not have a recourse? Is that what it is?
And it needs to be obligated to current contracts. We have way more than the $250,000 of contracts that we would spend over this calendar year. So I don't see a risk here. Of course, I can't foresee the future. And if we don't have a waste management contract, I'm not sure where we're going to spend that money. But I can't really foresee a future where we don't have a waste management contract.
Right.
And then that is our biggest contract, is our waste management contract. But that's not the only one that we're obligating money to in our budget.
Okay. So that just needs to be done by the end of next calendar year, but it's obligated by the end of this year.
Correct. Yep.
Anybody else?
It's actually not
Susan?
correct. So it has to be expended by December 31st, 2026. It has to be obligated by the end of December 2024.
Yeah. Of 20.
Oh, so we have 2 years to spend it, actually. Yeah.
Correct.
Perfect. Perfect.
But it has to be on current contracts, which we have contracts for years out in the future.
Correct. Right. The contract has to state it goes out to 2026. So as long as your waste management contract, has it been extended through 2 or 3 years?
Now you're testing me. I'll have to
You may
check
want to
that.
make sure it is, just because that's your largest one.
Yeah, and I do have other contracts as well, and I do have the accountant kind of tracking all of this expenditure. So
Yeah, it'd be something good to report back at the December council meeting, just because after December 31st, you have no recourse, right? December 31st, 2024.
good point.
Right.
Awesome.
Eva.
And we'll follow up with Michael. We'll follow up after that. I know it's really in the weeds, but it's important. Thanks.
Yep, absolutely.
I just wanted to ask any of you, Susan, Arthur, Andrew, do you have any questions for Eva?
No,
Okay.
Just thanks again,
Yep.
Eva, for all of your great
Yes.
assistance.
Fine reporting, thank you. There are a couple residents' hands up. Larry, do you have a question pertaining to the audit?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
I-
do you want to
yes,
ask it?
that-
Eva, do you mind? Okay.
Oh, no, of course.
Yeah. Jeff asked a question that I don't think got answered. He asked what would happen if we had a contractual obligation by the end of this year, December 31st, 2024, and the contract fell through. what would happen to those funds?
We would spend it on the other contracts that we have obligated by the end of this year.
It's more, it's overcommitted.
Yeah, they've overcommitted the funds. So if one fell through, there would be other contracts that could be used to replace those.
Can I follow up Larry's question? Is there recourse if a contractor goes out of business and you have a contract? Is that money, is there recourse next calendar year to use that? money, or is that just a loss?
We'd have to research that question because I don't know the answer about going out of business.
Okay, no, I mean, just going to Larry's question, what happens should there or a contractor decides to cancel the contract for whatever reason?
Sure. There
That
must
would
be
helpful,
something built in, but we can get back to you on that before your December meeting.
because we're doing our part to fulfill the obligations.
Right.
Yep.
So,
And I'll overcommit it and make sure that we have signed contracts that are way over that $250,000.
Mhm.
So.
Great.
Any other hands?
Yes, any other residents with questions pertaining to the audit? Or comments or? Okay,
Okay.
I don't see any. So Eva, once again, thank you for all you
Thank
do.
you.
And all of all these materials are available in tonight's
They're-
agenda.
They're posted as an attachment on the council website as well as on the audit website that goes back years. So we have every audit, and thank you, Eva, for all your good work.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. Have a great rest of your meeting.
You
Thank
guys
you.
are awesome.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Bye-bye.
Jinx, yep. Okay. Okay, well, thank you. That was a great report. And so next up on the agenda is a weather report. Resident weatherman of Turner Lane, Keith Allen. Thank you for waiting.
You and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I've got some winter weather to report on here.
Ooh,
It looks like the cold weather is gonna hang around into December, which is what I wasn't looking forward to. Originally, I thought it was gonna be very mild. Doesn't look that way now, at least through the middle of December. We might even get a snow or two. So we can finally get Rolling Acres to do some street work for us. We're gonna even see some snow in the air here tomorrow, but conversational snow. See, I've got it into the categories of conversational, sweepable, shovelable, plowable. Tomorrow's conversational. Temperature's only in the low 40s here tomorrow. That's 10 degrees colder than it is right now. And that's as cold as it gets in the middle of January. That's tomorrow. With the wind, it's gonna feel even colder. If you go out into Garrett County tomorrow, if anybody wants to go skiing, there's gonna be some blizzard conditions out there and blowing and drifting snow. Temperatures around 30. 6 to 8 inches of snow there, and there's gonna be up to a foot of snow all the way up through Pennsylvania into upstate New York. That's gonna get rid of all the fire danger and the drought up there. So that's good news. And Thanksgiving looks like it's gonna be cold too. Could we see some snow on Thanksgiving? We haven't had a cold Thanksgiving since 2005. And in 2007, it was in the 70s in 2007. A lot of mild days, mostly 50s during, on Thanksgiving, but not next week. Could see some snow then. So, let's see here. What else can we talk? Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Mina.
What's January looking like?
Well, I still think that it's it's a La Nina winter, so I think it's gonna be mild, We had 80 degrees last January. I can't guarantee that again this year, but I think that, we are gonna get a little bit of winter here pretty soon, and it's gonna probably be, a lot of it's gonna come next month.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Well,
Any
thank
questions
you.
from the people online? I
Oops.
take questions here too.
Oh, okay. I don't see anybody's hand up, but I appreciate your almanac. That's great. You should also pin one. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Keith, you're
Well,
magnificent. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, so before we launch into resident comments, I just wanted to first thank our residents who attended last month's council meeting in the room and on the Zoom. I think we had record attendance at that event, and I sincerely appreciated your thoughtful participation when County Executive Mark Elridge addressed our community, as well as in September when the housing planner, Lisa Gavoni, delivered her presentation. And so I'm additionally grateful for any comments residents sent to the county council portal by October 18th regarding attainable housing strategies. So just wanted to thank again, always for your input and recent participation that represents our community. And I'm also looking forward to the results and comments from our annual survey, which was distributed last week. So on that note, are there any resident comments? Don't all rush at once.
I see one hand. up.
Oh, let's see. Marty, do you have a comment or a question? Okay.
Try it again.
Marty, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Somebody,
I'm getting a weird echo here.
yeah, somebody's is not muted. Katie, are you muted?
Okay, let me try. Quick question. Is the audit report in the packet for this meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And also, I wanted to ask the council to make a small change in the minutes before you approve them. There's a quote from me in the minutes that says, that I said that last month's meeting was the most important in 40 years. I'd appreciate if you'd add, because of the potential rezoning proposal, the meeting was important. I wasn't just blowing hot air there. Can you amend the minutes
We can.
to
we
say
can
that
move
the zoning thing is the most important issue we faced in 40 years?
Yeah.
Small change.
You need to leave the meeting.
I'm just gonna leave. Okay, fine, hold on.
Sorry about that.
That's fine. Hold on. Okay. So let's close out of this. Well, we're taking up the meetings later in the meeting. I mean, correct, on the agenda, so maybe we can bring that up
Do
then
it at that.
when we're doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, now I
I
have
got
very
it.
good vision. Who's up next?
Larry Watson, is that an old hand or a new hand?
No, that's the new,
Okay, go ahead.
so would you let me hold my comment until Keith's committee report?
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's fine. All right, anybody else? I can't see, sorry.
Yep. No other hands raised.
No other comments? Okay. Well, if there are no other comments, I'm going to move on to committee reports, and I would like to start with the Community Engagement Committee, since almost half your committee is present here in the room, which is great. Susan and I are co-liaisons to this committee, which is our largest committee presently of 7 volunteers. They had quite a brainstorming session during their last meeting to generate new ideas for more community engagement. And I understand there will be a request made of the council tonight to consider a new event. And it is my hope that the majority of the full council will support this event, and I think would really benefit the residents at this time. So,
I'm gonna
Community
defer
engagement.
to the ladies,
okay.
because
Ladies
they're
first.
the ones doing all the work on this.
Well, that's not quite, we hope not. Yeah, exactly.
Well, so far they have anyway.
Well, Thank you. I
And
mean,
they've
this
done
has
a-
been a really good group effort. We have a really nice group
all
this year
together.
with lots of new ideas, which has been fantastic, right, Susan?
Mm-hmm.
I brought a little show and tell, so I'm gonna unfurl my props here
Oh.
And
for
before
the
you-
benefit of the council members.
So I noticed on the calendar that's in your packets, it's actually already on there, which surprised me. It says this, December event.
Mhm.
Is that this?
It's that.
Okay, perfect.
Pass this around, please.
You want to turn the lights off?
Oh,
Perfect.
perfect.
Yes.
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 Oh,
So I don't know if everyone, yeah, so everyone could see it on the
That's
camera.
great.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Andrew.
superb.
I had a purpose here tonight.
So we're
Show and
using
tell.
electronic candles, not actual,
Safer, safer.
Yeah.
not as much fun.
It's much fun, but for liability purposes, we bought an electronic candle. And so what the engagement committee is proposing, we have a lot of ideas. We really want to boost activity within the village. We want to have a lot more activities, especially for adults. We identified that we have a lot of stuff going on for families, for children. So we want to be a little bit more inclusive.
Inclusive.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we all agreed that we needed one event immediately to kind of bring the village together and create some spirit, and just reconnect as a
Mhm.
village and as a community. So we're proposing, and we circulated a proposal, for, a VMA Night of the Lights. And we're very, you know, that's why I was paying close attention to the weather report. This is not a new proposal. The idea was floated last year. The idea is to have just one evening where we all gather together as a village and put lights in front of our house and just gather and share, you know, just chat with our neighbors over a mug of hot cocoa and some cookies.
That's
and
all- that's just hot-
celebrate
just hot cocoa?
community.
No alcohol.
So the idea is, and I circulated, what we would do is we would provide each household with just a starter luminary as you know, an item for folks to display in front of their house to show that their participation in this event. And what we're really hoping is that all of the residents will actually supplement these luminaries with their own displays of lights. And, you know, anything that represents their own traditions, their cultural traditions, whatever is meaningful to them in this season, just, you know, light up your home and show your spirit and explain, you know, cut out paper bags if you'd like, whatever you'd like to do. Our idea is that we'd have 8, maybe 9 tables around the village that would be hosted by street captains or designees, somebody who would like to stand in on the street. And where we'd offer hot cocoa and cookies. And then, so you could chat on your own street, or you can walk around and see what's being displayed on other streets. And we have, we've already produced a flyer, which would have the final flyer, the exact route hasn't been established yet, would have a map of where all those little stands are. So everyone can walk around and knows ahead of time what to expect.
What time, what days are we thinking about?
The 2 days that were floated so far were December 15th and December 23rd.
So you know, we're
Ideally-
aiming for a Sunday.
We're aiming for Sunday. Thank you, Susan, to avoid any conflicts in terms of family activities that people may have. Which we'd love to do December 15th to get in there before people start leaving on holidays. We know that this is a busy time of the year, and even December 15th may be a hot day. But the longer we wait, we feel the colder it gets. And this is where Keith, please weigh in terms of our best opportunity with the weather.
And you're thinking, I can't remember the
I've
time.
already put in your order.
To have good weather then.
Luke.
And you were, I can't remember the times, you were thinking 7 to 9?
Yeah, 7 to 9 was the idea. So we're waiting for nightfall, obviously, because we have to light these lights up. And, you know, it would be a short period.
And the
And
Commanders game should be over by that time. Unless they flex it on, later on in the second game.
the information, this is a low-cost event for the village.
Mhm.
We have an estimated budget just under 2,500, 2,276 to be exact. You know, this is to provide the luminaries, the hot cocoa, and that's about it, really.
Some bags.
Some bags, because we're gonna hang them up on people's doors. And we'd love for the council to support us. We're hoping they will be well attended, but it's gonna be our first year, so we know that, you know, it's something that's gonna be new and, you know, it's gonna take something to build. But it's a low cost event, so, you know, hoping it's a good place to start.
This is gonna be an event that will include all the streets in our community.
Right. Well, and you're thinking of calling it the Night of Lights, is that right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Very
can't remember who
unifying
came up
event.
with that suggestion, but it was a
Mhm.
really nice one.
Mhm.
The VMA or Village Night of Lights.
Lovely. Mhm.
Good.
Oh,
Does the council want to vote to approve this and then
Do
we
we-
can go ahead?
yeah.
We
and
could just vote now.
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, we make a motion. Just-
I move that we hold this great event.
I would like to second that.
Aye.
Go, yes, me and
Aye.
Cindy. Well done.
Good.
Aye,
Yes.
unanimous.
Oh, and Jeff, I too.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do
Thanks,
we-
Jeff.
do we- And is that also vote for the 15th?
For-
Contingent upon being able to get all our supplies by then?
Yeah, yes, you're the
Yeah.
planners.
We're on it.
You're the party
We'll
planners.
follow up.
Yes,
You have the
absolutely.
official
I'll be
green
the
light.
supporting him, I can.
Right.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you so
Thank you,
much.
thank you.
Thank you, CEC.
Wonderful. yeah.
Okay, it's a great idea. Okay. I don't hear any feedback, so I'm back on. So was there anything else you wanted to report from your meetings or?
Well, we're excited about the LaFern, but right now we want to concentrate on this event.
Yeah, got a deadline, sure. It's kind of fast
We
approaching.
generated a lot of new ideas. I think we want some time to refine them.
Sure,
This is true.
yeah.
Do I
And we
get to
did-
keep this?
Absolutely.
We also
You can take your
talked
cookies
about-
home in it.
You know, we talked about the 40th anniversary and
Mhm.
the role of the community engagement committee versus I know there's interest across the whole
Yeah,
village. So we're gonna think some more about that.
And we're also really interested in hearing from residents. So
Mhm.
if anyone is listening tonight and has ideas that they want to share with the engagement committee,
Mhm.
please, you know, come to the next meeting or send us, any one of us, an email.
Or include them in the survey.
Yeah.
Since you'll be reporting on that.
Mhm. Right, in the comments, right. And then when is your next meeting? Did you all decide on
Second Tuesday of, isn't it?
Okay.
Oh, it was a Wednesday this time.
Wednesday, right? Okay,
I have to
all
get
right.
I thought it was on the calendar.
We'll put it out. Don't worry. All right, well, thanks,
Okay.
everyone. Yeah, all right. I guess someone does have a Larry, did you have a comment about the event?
Yeah, I wanted to ask if this committee would consider. I was thinking of how we're doing things for, what is it, Chevy Chase at Home? Is that, one of the things we're involved with? Katie, do you know?
Well, we have a
It was on the survey,
scholarship
right?
program, right,
Right.
for Chevy Chase at
So
home.
in that line of thinking, I was wondering what we could do as a village to make it easier for people who have difficulty getting around to be welcome to and brought to maybe these village events.
Oh, mhm,
That's a great idea.
okay.
Do we have a list or do we know from Chevy Chase at Home who we're providing support to?
No, but I mean, the village itself could actually send out some communication to the various households. I mean, when I did the survey, I was shocked at the number of things I didn't go to. I haven't gone to simply because of health issues in the house. But it got me to thinking about how many people would probably love to be there. And if we can't, another option might be to provide some kind of Zoom that they could be involved with.
Or help,
Or volunteers, VMA
Yeah,
volunteers.
in the announcements, we could say, people who need
Mhm.
assistance attending, just let us know.
Yeah, if you would like to attend,
Fellow
you need
residents
assistance.
volunteer yeah, that's a good idea.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Good
Yeah,
idea,
thank
Larry.
you for your idea. That's great. Okay. Yeah, does anybody else have any? I don't see any other hands raised, so I'm gonna move on to the other committees. How about we have ethics go next? Lori, are you ready?
I'm ready. Thanks, Katie.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a great committee this year of dedicated volunteers. In fact, every member of our committee has previously served as a chair of a village committee. Two of the members have also served multiple terms on the election committee. We met last week for the first time and decided that our first area of focus is going to be formalizing our committee SOPs, just to ensure that the institutional knowledge is passed on to future committees. Fortunately, we learned that George has professional expertise in this area, so he's going to be taking the lead on this project. Additionally, we reached out to all committee chairs to assist us in assessing how many volunteers will participate in our upcoming January ethics training. And I just want to give a shout out, I think he's in the room, to Keith Allen, who told me that he'll be asking all the members of CEC to attend the training, of course, schedules permitting. Finally, I just want to invite everyone to our December 9th meeting and wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks, Katie.
All right, thank you, Lori. Terrific. And then how about next? We have election committee. Marty, are you ready? Would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. I'm having some trouble with my audio, so I'm going to keep this very short. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We met on this November 4th for our second meeting. We provided the recommended election schedule for 2025 to the council last month. And just a friendly reminder that you will need to vote to approve that. And we will submit the election regulation recommendations for 25 at the December council meeting. So that's on schedule. At the meeting on November 4th, we addressed a couple of issues. We looked at the voter roll verification process for this year and agreed that we do not need a separate outside audit. Thank you to Michael for his steadfast work to update the village office list of residents, and we've got the clean voter roll from last year, plus of course the county voter roll. And so we're in good shape on the audit, on the verification this year without an outside audit. We took a preliminary look at the 2024 election regulations, which we'll be using as a basis to recommend the regulations for 2025. Had a number of concerns there, which we'll get into next month. And the other thing we did, which was interesting, was at the request of Arthur Alexander and a couple other residents, we announced and held an open public forum discussion about term limits. It seemed like the logical thing to do. We took no position as a committee on term limits, pro or con, but we put some good information on the election committee page about the basic government election, term limits. And Elizabeth Goldberg provided some good information about the pros and cons of term limits for nonprofit boards. Arthur noted that the VMA would have to have a charter amendment to institute term limits. And again, the committee facilitated the discussion, but we did not take any position on it. We did say, the committee said that it might be useful to look at ways to make it more rewarding for residents to run for office. And I'm going to leave it there for the moment and ask my teammates, I think Larry and Elizabeth are both here, if they would like to add anything. We will provide a written election committee report either tomorrow or Monday. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to ask Larry and Elizabeth if you'd like to say anything and turn it over to you.
Okay. The only thing is that I think this conversation about term limits is something just slightly out of the purview of what our committee should be working on. Which is why we didn't actually do anything in depth about it or pursue it is because I think that and improving the atmosphere so that we get more participants in our local government are just not quite election committee issues. Our purview would be, should you pass a term limit, that we make sure that it's that is properly taken care of should somebody try to run for a. I know Arthur wants to run for his 57th term, and we just have to watch that. So, you know, but actually this really is not, I don't think this is part of our mission. Anybody else on the committee want to say something?
Well, I guess I'll just ask council members, do you all have? Smart. Do you, what are your thoughts on the required candidate forum? I mean, my position is
Marty, can you mute?
She's muted. You know, what if there's a family emergency? You know, what if it, you know, like things happen? I mean, and you know, it's fine to put that into their plan this year, but I mean, what are your thoughts? You know, on this
A required
a required
candidate forum.
yeah.
I mean, it's nice, sure, but
Mhm.
it shouldn't be obligatory.
Yeah. And I think the main reason for that, one of the main reasons is that if you don't have it, it throws for some
Right.
you know, various circumstances that may arise, then it throws off the whole election process. A required thing is not held, what then? And so, you know, keeping requirements to the minimum, I think is a goal here.
Well,
for flexibility.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. I mean, the last few years, we've had a more robust like write-in campaign. So if someone writes in, this very rarely has happened. I think maybe once in the town of Chevy Chase, someone actually won on a
No, there's
write-in.
one in the
No, it
village.
actually happened
There
in the
was-
village.
In the village? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, and if someone is a write-in and they didn't go through the process and they didn't go through a required candidate form, what does that mean? And then if you do have this required, what happens if someone just doesn't want to do it or
Right.
can't show up, and then are they kicked off the ballot? I mean, those are the kind of questions I think I would have. Andrew, you look like you're wondering something.
No, I mean, I think it's probably people like using the term best practices around here. I think it's a best practice to have them. At the same time, I think that your question as to what happens if someone is too timid, not available, not interested, I don't think that impacts the actual procedure and process of an election. It just disadvantages that person that can't attend because, you know, when do you ever have the opportunity to address more than one household or 3 households and online households during council meetings? So I think wording it as a requirement is a little too onerous. Having the wording be something to the effect of best practices, and it has happened on a regular basis. I think there are a few times where it hasn't, is the best approach. And I think it's in everyone's interest to want one. And I think most candidates are excited, nervous in advance and during, except for Susan, of course, she's a pro. But so I would agree with Susan and Arthur. And if I'm agreeing with you too, Katie, that it shouldn't be, you know, statutorily
Mandatory.
required a part of the election process.
Okay. No, thanks for your thoughts on that. I see Larry, you're on the committee. You had your hand up. Oh, well, Jeff, sorry, Jeff. Please, Jeff then Larry, sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, folks. Oh, you know how much I love forums. So listen, I love my fellow council members and everyone else. I'm thinking like in national elections, if all of a sudden we said, oh, we're not going to have a debate, you know, I feel that it's really not a big deal for us to say that we're going to have a forum amongst candidates every year. So I'm just giving you my 2 cents. I think it should be normalized and I think we should have it. And if you think about normatively in, you know, state or national areas, I mean, there are debates, and when there isn't one, there's a big kerfluffle, and usually it moves into the idea that it's scheduled. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I think it should be normalized, but I'm one. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, Larry, I see your hands up.
I'm so stunned at this. How could you possibly, as incumbents, not see the bias where every month and through newsletters and alerts and weekend updates, your names are being put before the villagers. And along comes these new candidates. The villagers know nothing about them. And they have 2 opportunities to provide that information, and you have an obligation to ensure that the villagers know something about people running for office. And one of those 2 options is this forum, which should be a shall, not a may. If a person doesn't want to participate in the forum, that's fine. If he's a write-in candidate and can't, that's also fine. But as a tenet of good government, where you're not limiting people's knowledge or information about who's available to run and what they say or believe or think, is absurd. It's a shall, not a may. That's good government. That's all I got to say on it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess I agree with Larry to the extent that I would encourage the language to be to a point where it doesn't
Positively forcefully positive.
Yeah, that it doesn't exclude or deny this forum from taking place. So if shall versus may prevents a rogue council from denying a forum from taking place, or a rogue election committee, which I think is far-fetched, but if that's the concern, I would always want to err on the side of caution and transparency. So maybe I've just reversed my consideration here. I mean, I don't think there's a threat to this not happening, but at the same time, if there's just one person or a certain grouping that fears that a future council could deny this possibility. So I agree with that, Larry. I also think that folks interested in running for the council have more than just a few opportunities. They can come to council meetings every week. They can be online every month, and be as outspoken as you have been and Marty has been, and consistent participants, so that the VMA voting public that actually pays attention to what goes on in this office gets to know these individuals. But having said that, I think I agree with Larry.
Elizabeth Goldberg is another member of the committee. Elizabeth has her hand up. So, Elizabeth, can you unmute?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't want to go.
No.
Okay. There. Okay. I am new to the election committee this year, and I just wanted to add my 2 cents to what Larry just said. I watched the candidate forum this last round with great interest, and found it's extremely informative to see people on their feet, or not literally, but in front of their fellow residents, responding to questions. I think it's an invaluable opportunity for candidates running for re-election to restate what's important to them, what their values are, what the key issues are for them in this village, what might be some forward challenges and areas that the village could entertain. It's a tremendous communication opportunity for existing candidates, but if and it is the only opportunity, or one of the few. I mean, I agree what Andrew just said. There are other opportunities, but this is a very particular one for an unknown person or little known who wants to be seen, to be seen by everybody who's tuned in. So the exposure is much, and the effect of that exposure is much better in a forum setting than perhaps attending a single meeting here and there. So I feel that the potential for bias is a key issue that should be avoided at all costs. And we can argue and wordsmith, but the idea is we should strive to have the election, so that if we don't, I mean the forum, so that if we don't, it's because of some disaster, some climatic issue, some tremendous dramatic health issue, that it wasn't possible, but that should be the exception rather than the rule. And I also agree with it should be flexible so that people aren't obligated if they choose not to participate in it. That can be their choice. But nevertheless, it fundamentally serves that purpose of not favoring existing candidates, because it's human nature when people get a ballot, if they see names on it that they recognize, they may, the tendency to click the people that to run for election again. If they see names they don't know and haven't had a basis to know otherwise, either through the informational packet or through a presentation and on their feet answering questions. I know it's a little intimidating to do, uncomfortable, but sitting on the council is uncomfortable too, I'm sure, with all of the complex issues and personalities that you have to deal with. So that's what I feel about it. I feel quite strongly about it as a new member of this election committee, that it's just one of those, it's sort of at a principle level that I think we should strive to accommodate as much as possible. Thank you.
No, that's great, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Those are good points. Thank you. And then, I was going to move on to the other committee reports, but I think this goes back to if you all recall, the 9 recommendations that were made, and this was one of them. And we agreed to 2 of them, but there was one other point that was the wording of the recount language also. So these are the 2 that keep coming back to the council for reconsideration. So I just wanted to remind everybody of that. And I think that's what the election committee was alluding to. So I'm gonna move back. If you all want to comment later in the meeting, that's fine. I'm gonna jump to who haven't we heard from yet? Stormwater. Is anybody representing stormwater?
One thing, Michael, if we could make there's only 3 members on the stormwater committee now, and we need more volunteers.
Right.
We need announcements for more volunteers for that.
Okay.
Have you volunteered? I don't see him on the call. Elizabeth or Yasmina? We do.
Task force members. And so Elizabeth?
She has her hand up. Is that a new hand, Elizabeth?
No.
For stormwater? Oh, okay. Well, you're
Great.
welcome to
Well,
comment
I
on
just want to
stormwater.
give a quick update, Elizabeth, and if you may, please jump in with anything that you would like to add or correct the record. Thank you, Arthur. We have 2 new members on the task force, Elizabeth and myself. Mark has been on the task force for 6 months since it was created. We really would love to have more residents join us in this important work. Largely this task force has been continuing the work of the prior task force that was started last year, which came up with a recommendation to hire an engineer to really study the stormwater issues in the Village of Martins Additions. At the end of last year, an RFP was drafted and issued, to which we received responses from 3 bidders for this work on behalf of Martins Additions. The committee is currently looking at those RFPs and will make a recommendation to the council based on our review of those RFPs. It's the process is a little bit more lengthy than we had anticipated, I should say. We were hoping to have a recommendation to the council last week, or at least to know where we would stand. We are gonna reconvene December 4th, hopefully to come up with a final recommendation and draft that, and then subsequently move that to the council.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Yasmina.
Elizabeth, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, I think you said we were reviewing RFPs, but we're actually reviewing the proposals, right?
Thank
Yeah.
you for the correction.
So, and it's a lot of work. I think we've each clocked about 25 hours so far on this job. So we do, I'd like to second the call for more hands on board. This is a heavy committee with a lot of work and a lot of constant work, because once that engineer starts, there will be also a lot of interaction continually throughout the 5 months or so of the proposal life with the task force. So we need, I think, you know, I don't know how we can do it, but we need more helpers in this, more participants.
And I would add to that, Elizabeth, and Yasmina, that there was a survey done for the committee of the residents. There's a huge amount of information that the engineer will help sort through and figure out what's going on. Right now, it's just a lot of information, and so that will have to be analyzed.
Next door.
Oh, no, sorry.
Thank you on that.
That's all.
Thank you. Jeff's hand is up. I know he's one of the, he's
Jeff.
a co-liaison to the committee, so.
Hey,
Jeff,
folks.
did you have a comment?
Yeah, just very briefly, and thank you for that outbrief and the work, and it's just so much is there. So it'd be great if there's some more volunteers, but thanking the committee and what they're doing. One thing I just want to put on the table, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think everyone agrees that this is important, just as recognizing. I had this as a directed conversation with Mark, you know, before the committee really started getting underway, and talked about, again, the rezoning piece of it and what's happening at the county council, and that we don't know how that's going to play out. But at the time, had shared informally that, you know, the work should continue. But I think we also have to recognize that if there is a rezoning that does get passed, and then of course we don't know if it goes to legal, and I know Ron is giving an update, you know, if there's going to be lawsuits and things, so we just don't know where that will be. But this, obviously, the output of this type of engineering report will be impacted a great deal, and we'll just need to cross that. But again, I just want to put out there that certainly we shouldn't, and I think we all agree that we shouldn't pause this in any way, but recognizing that if there is a rezoning, or this starts to go through, that the impact study of what it is in a single family zoned R60 versus an upzoned R60 is going to be materially different, and the actual way that you go about it could also be very different. So I'll just stop there, but something for us to keep in the back of our mind. And it would be great if that were, if we had to cross that bridge, you know, then the county or state or someone would be responsible for covering those additional costs. Over.
Okay, right on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. That's certainly on our minds as we look at these proposals from the engineers and we continue our conversations.
Well, thank you for the 25 hours.
Is that per member? Or-
Cumulative.
Some of those bids are very, very long.
Yeah.
Did you have a
Still, that's a
timeline
lot.
on when you would have a recommendation for the council? I think the council can agree to move pretty quickly on approving whatever you all recommend.
Yeah, I know there's eagerness to move forward. We we are reconvening on December 4th.
Okay.
Hopefully it won't take long to draft a proposal. Definitely, I mean, my hope would be that we'd have it done within a week of meeting.
That's worth it.
So
Yeah.
I don't want to speak too quickly.
Yeah, right.
Terrific.
Okay.
And then the last, I don't know if there's anybody from Anti-Semitism and Education Task Force. But
I don't think so.
the liaison is here.
Yeah, I could just quickly.
Sure.
We had a great, I think, was it our second one already, or was it the first? But we had a great visit, great meeting. We have 5 task force members, very active, very engaged. And I think on their behalf, we want to thank the council and the village manager for facilitating and expediting a communication from the task force related to an incident on the 86th anniversary of Kristallnacht, which was basically 2 boulders thrown through the front windows of a kosher restaurant in downtown DC that has not been, it's under investigation. So unclear how this or why this was done. Plenty of other restaurants and shops around this one. And this one seemed to have been targeted. So appreciate us being able to, or the task force being able to help bring awareness. And I know they're working on plans to put together events down the road. So thank you.
Did you
Well,
want to
I
comment?
would just like to clarify for anyone who, I have gotten some feedback with
Okay.
regard to that communication, and while everyone agrees that we should all oppose any acts of violence or discrimination or racism, we're not the municipal Yelp, so we shouldn't be directing.
Oh, right.
And so that second paragraph, I think, was of that communication was issued in error.
Yes.
I think there was a majority opinion of the council just to agree that this was an outrage essentially, but not to say, we urge you to go.
No, and I think there was a miscommunication in signing off
I
on
think
that,
so
where
too, yeah.
I think we agreed we shouldn't direct business to one particular establishment, and we
Right.
just should raise awareness and support the community as a whole. So I think that was kind of a miscommunication
I think so.
here.
Mhm.
And the task force offered 2 versions, and we
Went with the wrong one.
went with the wrong one. So, but
Just wanted
I've
to
got
clarify.
mostly positive feedback, and I know people are very, there's a heightened sensitivity to, the village, favoring one over another,
Mhm.
et cetera, et cetera. We don't have to go down that rabbit hole, but thank you for raising that.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
great. Thank you, Andrew, for your update. Okay, well, I'm going to move on now to the next item on the agenda, attainable housing strategies update. Before I turn the floor over to Village Attorney Ron Bolt, and he's still on, right? He's waited
Yes.
patiently.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you, Ron. I didn't see you on my screen, sorry. I just wanted to say, explain that I asked Ron to deliver the latest update about an effort by a group of local municipalities the VMA joined this past summer to request a technical amendment. And as mentioned before, I've invited recent speakers along with the council to address the VMA concerning the latest on the Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative. And I personally have attended countless meetings. I don't know about 25 hours. It feels like that. Countless meetings at this point about the AHSI, that's what they call it. But most recently, I attended this week's county council meeting where the staff delivered a report on the comments received from Montgomery County residents about AHSI and next steps. Our VMA council members worked collaboratively to provide a comment about our current concerns in the form of a letter on behalf of the VMA community. And we got that into the comment portal before it closed on October 18th. I learned, not surprisingly, there was an unprecedented amount of feedback. I learned at the county council meeting that I think thousands or at least 1,400 comments were received, more than that maybe, by the closing time of that date. And there are still opportunities to comment. But current county president Andrew Friedson said this is not a rushed process. I say current because as of December, that position will be filled by Councilmember Kate Stewart. But it's still my understanding that as of now, there is no legislation before the county council. But however, we're not resting on our laurels here in the VMA. Michael continues to update our website with a page dedicated solely to AHSI, Attainable Housing Strategies Initiative. The latest mentioned staff report is there, and it's my hope that we will have a county council member attend either our next council meeting in December or January. So the issue isn't going anywhere, obviously, but it's my intention as chair to provide some sort of update at every council meeting this year. And so now residents would like to hear from Ron. Thank you, Ron, and so would I and the rest of council.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So as everybody probably knows, in response to the letter we submitted to our delegates, along with 10 other municipalities, Delegate Solomon and Corman did draft a bill and introduce it to the Montgomery County delegation. The text was slightly different from the text that we had recommended, but we don't think the change that was made is substantive. As you'll recall, with respect to our initial draft, Delegate Solomon indicated, there were a couple of concerns that his colleagues raised when he floated the language to them. Notably, there was a concern that the draft text could empower Tacoma Park to regulate commercial properties in their new commercial residential transition zones, resulting from an amendment to the master plan in April. So we've addressed that issue. The other issue, Delegate Solomon noted that Delegates Carr, Delegates Moon, and Jason Sartori, the planning director, raised concerns about municipalities being able to effectively prohibit or prevent multifamily projects based on height restrictions. So that's an issue that we're likely going to need to discuss further. Delegate Solomon indicated there would likely be an opportunity to discuss this issue before the bill's first reading at the Montgomery County delegation, which is expected mid or late December.
Mm-hmm.
So the delegation does have on its website placeholders for a December 9 and a December 16 meeting. I'm meeting with Delegate Corman tomorrow at the town of Somerset, and I'll ask whether there's any plan yet with respect to when the first reading might be, so we can gauge whether we need to do any lobbying for or with respect to that second issue before that first reading. So that's on the state level. And then at the county level, the county's working on its attainable housing strategies. And as Katie noted, County Council held that meeting on the 19th where it reviewed the monumental report prepared by staff summarizing the public comments that had been received. And as Katie noted, there was no indication by the County Council at that meeting where they'd go next, whether a zoning text amendment is going to be drafted or whether further assessment is to be done. There are some that are concerned that there may already be a zoning text amendment in the works, so we'll have to be ready to respond to that if that is the case. Some other municipalities have retained a land use attorney, Michelle Rosenfeld, to help keep them informed, to closely monitor what's happening at the county level, and to be available to lobby for consideration in that drafting. Martin's Additions has the ability to join that effort. I think that would be a fair thing to do, because right now, Chevy Chase Village, Chevy Chase View, Town of Chevy Chase, Section 3 and Section 5 have signed up. And so the more folks that sign up, the smaller the bill is for everyone. And I imagine you'd have the same interest in staying informed to that level. I mean, you could get the updates third hand from me, but yeah, it's up to you. I mean, in fairness, it probably makes sense to sign on to. So that's my update. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ron. Anybody at the table have any questions?
Yeah, the signing on, this is an attorney who specializes in land use issues, who closely is following what's happening in the county council.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And if you'll recall, she was one of the speakers along with our county executive in the presentation about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I believe I shared that link, and it was a, very, very impressive presentation and scathing rebuke of the county's planning procedures to date.
Okay, so what do we have to do that? Just, first of all, how much?
So, I mean, her hourly rate is $430. There's no real scope of work other than, phase 1 would be staying abreast of happenings at the county level. Phase 2 would be considering what, if any, lobbying to do with the county. And, I imagine the clients may diverge at some point, maybe in phase 2, but phase 1, staying informed. I think everybody's probably on the same page. And
So that would be split roughly 5 ways. Possibly 6 ways. I lost count.
that's right, 6, yeah. With you
So-
joining, it'll be 6, and others might join as well.
Seems like a good idea. Is there, we just direct the manager to do so, or?
Well, I see Jeff's hands up. Jeff, did you want to comment or have a question?
Well, why don't we go through procedurally what Arthur is suggesting? I mean, I can comment, but on that particular piece, which I think is absolutely relevant, and I would join to vote in the affirmative. So if you want to make a motion, I'd be happy to support it.
Okay. All right. Well, Susan, Andrew, anything to add or
No, I think we would definitely benefit from
benefit from
being
this?
part of it.
Okay. All right. Well, then, yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's try that. Does this have to be the pitch? Okay, I see Larry, you're waving. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. I wonder if before you make this decision, is there any way to contact Elrich's office and talk to him about what is, when a whole bunch of people join together in a group, unfortunately, their individual names and the potential impact of this town and this village and this one and this one and this one, it gets all clumped together and becomes one. And it may have far less political impact. I mean, $430 an hour is nothing compared to the damage that this could do to our village. And if we were to, have a person go in there representing us and maybe make this information to others so that there is this larger footprint saying this is just not acceptable. I'd love to know from him, from Mark, which would be the better approach?
Larry, this is for information for us. This isn't lobbying per se. This is somebody who's going over, seeing what's going on and reporting what's going on. It's intelligence, not
you're
lobbying.
saying you would think about hiring somebody to lobby then, which that's wonderful. That's beautiful.
Phase 2, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And
And
I'm sorry,
Ron-
sorry, Katie. I just wanted to add into that, and maybe Ron, you may or may not know, but I know it was when I attended of the municipal leaders, and Michelle's name had come up at the time, and the discussion of this phase 1, phase 2, and it gets to Larry's point, and that was my question before this administrative piece came up was, I mean, there are some very specific things that I think would be important for VMA to aggressively understand specific to how, like the 1 mile radius would cut through our actual municipality, which may or may not be the same for some of these others. And just, again, this is way past my depth of understanding, but just the legalities of, you know, those sorts of things in terms of cutting through a municipality. And, you know, so while the information piece is great, my understanding, and maybe this is just something that we talked to Michelle about, is if we have very specific VMA questions that we would like addressed beyond the general information, you know, would she also then take those on and we would be billed for those specifically? Because again, kind of hearkening to Larry's and maybe others' thoughts, is I think we do have some very specific VMA concerns that may not overlap with others, but I wouldn't necessarily want to wait and put those on hold. I would like to, you know, get some information, if that makes sense. Over.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have her engagement agreement from the other towns. I can share that with you. And what is proposed in the agreement is if it's a work item that everybody generally wants, then the bill is shared. If it's something that just one municipality requests, then that municipality is individually billed. And if down the road differences of opinion arise among the different municipalities such that a conflict of interest could arise in Michelle's representation of more than one, then the representation would have to be terminated. And you know, at least the municipality who raises the conflict or has the conflict would have to find new counsel.
Good, that's.
And Ron, while there's like this power in numbers protection, at this point.
Yeah, so yeah, Larry's point is a good one.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's a benefit to being together. There's bulk savings and whatnot, but on the other hand, you know, as Larry said, I do think there has to be some strategy when you get to the lobbying aspect to make sure the county understands the numbers behind that request from Michelle. Because, you know, as it was noted, I forget who made the comment during our call a couple nights ago, but in the staff report to the county council, if a municipality sends in a letter, it's noted as Martin's Addition sent in a letter, not Martin's Additions representing 400 households. Or,
right.
You know, so yeah, that is a good point to keep in mind.
And
So
December
it may have been more effective if 400 letters would have come in.
Right. Yeah. And then, but at the December 19th and the 16th sessions, one of them is in person and one's on Zoom, but public comments there's an opportunity for public to comment. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So our residents are always invited to attend those sessions as well, and to keep sending in the comments to the county council. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So do we move for Michelle? Do you, since you've worked on this issue, or Jeff the longest, do you want to make the motion?
Yeah, I move that we sign up for the intelligence and information from a highly knowledgeable person.
I'll second.
Okay,
Yeah.
for Jeff seconds. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay. We're on the list.
So
Okay.
we
All
should
right.
add some kind of in our legal budget, stick that in.
Under the legal budget. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. So I'm going to move on. Thank you, Ron, so much for.
I'm emailing Michelle right now to get her in touch with Michael.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you for the layman's terms of Annapolis versus Rockville and all that. All right. So next is the approval of the October 17th council meeting minutes. I thought reviewed them, but I wanted to know Marty had made a comment. She wanted to she had a suggestion for
Add a phrase.
add a phrase, let's look
Yeah.
at the minutes here.
So I move that we
Uh,
adopt the meeting, including the phrase of, that was suggested
By
by.
Marty, okay. I'll second that. All in favor?
And I'm just noting for the record, that's the second comment that Marty made. The first comment
Mhm.
was Marty thanked the council for inviting Mark Elrich to this meeting. And the second comment at 9:49 was Marty thanked the council for tonight's meeting. She said that it was the most important meeting in 40 years. We're correcting that to say, because we were talking about attainable housing.
Okay. Marty, is that okay? Is that phrasing correct? I don't know, I think she's on mute.
Yeah, I managed to unmute myself. Thank you for checking, Katie. Most
Okay.
important meeting in 40 years because of the way this proposed rezoning proposal could affect VMA.
Okay, noted. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie, I'm sorry.
Jeff.
It's Jeff. I just wanted to make one quick comment on
Yeah.
the meeting minutes and I can
Uh-huh.
take it offline. Ron, you're still there? Can you hear me? This is also something to follow up. I don't want to take up too much time, but I just want to share very briefly. So in my day job with the State Department, I'm focusing on this whole modernization agenda and adoption of technology. And one area which I don't want people to run away or kick me out of the meeting is the adoption of AI, right? And we have a system internally within state that we use, but as you know, there's GDP,
GDP.
and I just want to share, we don't have to take up time here, but I could do it offline, is literally, I did an example of, it took me literally a couple minutes where I downloaded all the last 2 years of the meeting minutes from our council meetings, literally less than 2 minutes. And then I typed in, please do a comparison of major issues, challenges, and events. And within less than 30 seconds, it gave me an output of the summary of the last 2 years. And I just put that in, not as an example. Again, I have it here. I can show it another time. But I think there's a real power here of, and again, this is all public information, but, just following up, there may be some real interesting things we could do with it. That was 2 years. I did it in 2 minutes. We've all, you could do it with financial reports, you could do it everything, and it's all public information. So I just want to put that out, and Ron, maybe it's just a question later. I mean, it's all data that's been approved, it's posted. But, if we were to do something like this, it probably would be something, I don't know if the council needs to approve it, but anyway, I can give examples for the next packet to show. And then the other thing, Michael, which as you get to your manager report, and again, I'm doing this in the spirit of, I think it could really have humongous impact, is the meeting minutes. What we do now within state is we use Teams a lot. We don't really use Zoom that much, but what some do. And what we do is while we do the meeting, we actually are having it annotated, right? And then you can take that annotation and just drop it into the program. And within, again, 30 seconds, it'll summarize that into essentially your meeting minutes. And it takes probably, I don't know the hours that, Michael and others spend but literally through automation, you can take this as a task that has been stressful and takes up a lot of time, and it may even be more comprehensive and accurate. And so I just want to put that out there, that it might be worth, as a test case, one meeting or even a committee meeting is, the committee meetings aren't necessarily if to find volunteers. You literally through the Zoom, you can just do the feature to record it or annotate it, then you drop it in and it'll give you a meeting summary. Whole thing will be automated. And I think it might be something that could be very valuable as a tool and reduce, stress and things. So anyway, just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Jeff.
Something to think about.
Okay. Something to think about. All right. Well, I'm going to circle back. Jeff, it's time for your treasurer's report. So
Aha.
you have to unmute yourself again. Okay.
Well, I'll make this short. I mean, I have the report. I sent it and I apologize. I didn't have a chance to get it before the meeting packet came out, but it was also the audit. But we are in great shape. There's, you know, again, I don't think I need to share unless there's a burning reason. It'll be in the packet, but there's really nothing that is out of the ordinary. Let me just bear with me. I'll make this, I promise, very, very short, but let me just pull it up on my screen. Yeah, I mean, we're in what we call the black on all our categories, and there's really nothing unusual in terms of where we are. It's keeping in mind it's the end of the first quarter, and so we're on track, and all is good.
Okay.
First half, yeah.
Sounds good to me. All right. Well, let's move on then to Michael, your manager report. Thanks for waiting.
Sure, thank you. Three kind of quick points here. One is as of, I guess, last week, I've been here 2 years now. So I now enter my year 3.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. And I really want to thank all of you, not only for hiring me and writing my checks to me, but also for making this year kind of a lot easier for me. I think it's going really well here in the village office. And there's several specific things that we did to kind of make some improvements. So I want to thank you all for those. One, the strategic planning session we held in early July, which we're trying to make a practice every year, I think was really helpful for me to kind of realize where the council was at and kind of set the focus for my work plan this year. Two, the list of projects that we developed as a result of that meeting is very helpful, and I've been referring back to it very often. So I think that's worth noting. And then the second thing that came out of that meeting was the administrative calendar, which I've included in the packet, updated with check marks, which is where we're at. And we're going to get to the calendar in a minute. A fourth thing is several council members have kind of stepped up and been hosting the different committee and task force meetings. That is very helpful because there's 5 committees now, and that does take up an evening of my time. So not having to do that means I can be here on time in the morning and be focused on the projects. So that is really helpful. And then the big thing, actually, number 5 here on things that you all have done to really make my life easier is the budget line item that you've created for consultants and experts. Me being able to bring in outside people to focus on these different things has made each of our projects that we have a list of here easier. The Brookville sidewalk, obviously I can't do that. I'm hiring all sorts of surveyors and consultants for that. The resident directory, I was able to hire an outside consultant. I should have a final, complete, updated resident directory as of tomorrow. That's going to print. The village website is currently being redesigned, and we'll have some review of that coming up here in a couple weeks or a couple months. The email distribution tool is something we wanted to work on. I have hired a consultant that is helping me set up a new system called Regroup, which will be able to text alerts to people from anywhere, which will be able to do all of our current communications. The newsletter design is currently pretty bad because it's being designed in our current email distribution tool, which is not a design software, it's an email tool, Constant Contact. So I've actually hired Ironmark, a design team, to design a new newsletter in InDesign, an Adobe product. And the annual survey is the last one I wanted to talk about. The annual survey is live right now. The University of Maryland's Center for Governmental Services and Research is conducting that on their site. So I don't have to do it on Google Forms and deal with issues. They're handling all of it for me. Everyone should have an email from them with a specialized link for you to click on and fill out the survey online. And that they have improved the process too. They have included demographic data. They'll be able to do different levels of multivariable analysis off of that. So that's all really helpful. So
what's the responses so far, do you know?
I think we had 82 responses as of yesterday. So we're on pace. It's open through the rest of the month,
Mhm.
and we'll be sending out a number of reminder emails. They're sending out reminder emails every 5 days, and then I'm going to start blitzing towards the end of the month, which
Yeah.
is next week. There's also a QR code posted in the office and on the bulletin board. You can actually just scan the QR code and fill out the survey right there on your phone. So if you're tech savvy, you can just do that. And the second thing I want to mention is just the list of projects. I just mentioned a bunch of them, but also the audit's done. The stormwater study, we heard from the stormwater task force earlier. They're putting together a proposal on those bids. I know coming down the pike is, and kind of always on the back burner is traffic calming measures. So I have listed, several that have come up since that strategic planning session we had in July. And those include curb extensions have come up multiple times, adding speed humps specifically on Andrew.
Turner?
On Turner, there we go. And other places as well. I know Chestnut wants them. I know other places want them as well.
Never say no.
And then the shopping center entry exit issue is, I'm thinking about that still. That's on in the back of my
Parking
head.
enforcement.
Oh,
And parking enforcement's the next list of thing here.
Yeah.
I don't have an update on that because the county is not responding to my emails. I think I pestered them too much or something. And then
We should descend in force.
and then clarifying the council creation process, or how a bill becomes a law in the Village of Martin's editions is also something I want to work on at some point. So all of that is there. Now moving to the calendar real quick as my third thing.
Yeah.
You'll see I've added check marks next to everything that's been completed for the first page of the calendar there. For November, we did hold a CPR and first aid training class for village staff, council members and volunteers. That was very well. We had a full attendance with 10 people in attendance. I think that was great, and everyone should have gotten their certificate for that. The annual survey has been circulated, and the other two items are completed tonight with the audit being delivered and then this council meeting. So the only thing left from November is the performance review of staff. And then December, I want to mention real quick, remember that a reminder that the December meeting has been moved up 1 week. That is to accommodate the introduction of an election plan that I know the election committee is working very hard on. So that it's more than 30 days when we introduce it or when we pass it and adopt it in January.
Okay.
The holiday fund is coming soon. We mentioned the winter event. It sounds like that's going to happen on the 15th. So that's been approved as of tonight. So we're on pace. Everything's going really smoothly, and you can see why this calendar is really, really helpful. And also on our new website, we're going to have a really nice, fancy calendar right on the homepage with different tabs, so you can see all the committees on one calendar. You can see all the council events. You can see all the community events all in one place, along with these administrative tasks. So that's coming soon.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
fast, but are there any questions?
Well, thank you, and happy anniversary. Our community is lucky to have you.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you.
So
Andrew.
I was gonna say, piggyback on that the one thing that was missing in Jeff's treasurer's report was what a true treasure you are.
Oh,
And how amazing you've been as a village manager and as someone who was the chair when you were hired. And having witnessed close up all the challenges that you faced and the frustrations early on. I'm so proud of you as a professional and human being for powering through those many challenges. And I think we're just so lucky to have you. So thank you for all that you do for the village.
you're here.
Thank you very much.
Please, Susan.
Oh, it's so hard.
It's a love
It's
fest.
so hard to top that. Okay, I'll second, but also I have a very pedestrian or more of a regular question.
Sure.
That's fine too.
I think so.
Yeah.
The next leaf vacuuming, people are getting really enthused about leaf vacuuming these days. And I've noticed that some people are so psyched that they're raking their leaves into the streets in advance, which creates parking problems. So if we could get a little more early warning out on when it's safe to Put
And
them
the
in the right of way
And
and
the-
not in the street.
The picture
Yeah.
did show.
Yeah,
how to
Yeah,
do
it
and how
was
to
very
put-
You'd have
clear.
attention
I
to
think,
it for
I
it.
think it
Yeah,
has been
totally.
very clear, but I
Yeah.
think people sort of.
The amount of calls I've gotten this week about the leaf vacuuming is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
Well, what,
Just asking when it's happening or what to do?
I mean,
Just-
people don't read, first of all, like people do not read my emails. So that's, and that's just a reality anywhere, I think, but
Yeah.
people don't know when it's coming. They don't know what it looks like. They don't know where to put the leaves. They're asking me if I have leaf bags. I've already distributed leaf bags to over 100 households in the village. So yeah, that's just
but
part of
there
the
was
nature of it.
something that happened though, whenever it was a few days ago. The sweepers who go out and blow the leaves from the sidewalks into the street, and then the truck comes along and picks it up. They were about a block ahead, a block and a half ahead of the truck, and then it got dark and the truck went home.
Oh, no.
So everything was still there in the street
And they came
overnight.
back the next day.
And then the next day, the truck came back and kind of caught up with the sweepers. It was just a coordination problem,
Mhm.
that affected about a block and a half.
I'll one up that, a pending issue that we're not sure what's gonna happen with this contract with our leaf vacuuming, because they are using or leaf backpack blowers. Those are gonna be outlawed in Montgomery County. And our current contractor does not believe he will be able to vacuum our leaves anymore under the new county law. So we might not have leaf vacuuming next year, or it might be, 10 times more expensive. And it's already very, very expensive. You can see in the budget how much we spend on that every year. So that's a pending issue. I find myself putting out fires most days here with related to all sorts of things, including the leaves that were, the leaves are currently dumped at the county facility and then the county bills us for it after the fact. Well, we found out last week that bills from years ago had never been paid. So there's a county outstanding bill that we owe for leaves from years ago. And that's just one example of something that I deal with that comes up on a regular basis. There's something every single day that comes up. Today, there was the closet started beeping and it was driving us crazy. So we tried to figure out what was going on. And apparently there was a battery backup system for our landline so that if the power goes out, the landlines still work. Well, those batteries needed to be replaced. And so I was on the phone with Verizon for 3 hours today
You
to
found
figure
out the hard
that
way,
out. And as I'm taking apart electrical parts in the closet. So
Ugh.
that's just a little taste of what I deal with every day. So I totally understand that people are not raking their leaves to the right place, which is why I try to be clear in my communications about where to rake them, but it's an ongoing battle.
Right,
So,
of course. And to the extent that you know in advance and can give people a little more notice, they might comply a little better.
yeah, this week it's been a little messy too, because there was a gas leak on Turner Lane and Brookville Road, yesterday that caused quite a problem. And, including leaf vacuuming couldn't get Turner Lane in schedule. So they ended up skipping Turner Lane and coming back the next day. They have finished as of today.
By the way, there's been discussions over the years that I've been here about a smell, like a smell of gas around that area. At the shop here at the corner, and people have said that's kind of a legacy issue from the gas station, which wasn't really comforting. But the way they patched that up, not very pretty. Is that gonna be fixed?
That's not a permanent patch. That's a temporary patch.
Okay.
They put in cold patch and then they'll bring back, I think they contract with MT Laney to do their permanent patches. But the gas leak they think is actually coming from Brookville Road. They have investigated and secured portions of the line down Brookville Road, which is really on the Section 3 side. But they always seem to discover a new leak in the middle of the night, and then they're jackhammering all night. So I got a lot of complaints this week that people couldn't sleep on
Yeah.
Brookville Road from both sides of Brookville Road. This is aging infrastructure 101 here. And there's not much we can do other than try to communicate it as fast as we know something. I did finally figure out who is over Washington Gas's area here. And I have his direct cell phone number now. So if there is ever something that's happening, I have a line to call someone now. So that was progress I made this week, but I don't know if they've actually solved the overall gas problem. I think some of the smells are with sewer, not with gas here as well.
Yeah.
So
Well, I can only hope that these gas leaks are not dangerous, because jackhammering noise is gonna be the least of your worries if.
Right.
Well, that's why they do it when it occurs.
Yeah.
That's why they don't wait.
Would the alert system help with that sort of thing? And I also had will we be able to send out messages to the community, like say, like that happened after hours but I was well aware of it and could hear it, and my husband Snoop Doggy Dog was on the scene and told me all about it. So like that's something I could send out to the community on the text exchange, correct? Like when we get that.
Yeah,
going?
phase one will be basically to recreate the current notification system we have, but I will also be able, much easier to send out notifications from anywhere
Mhm.
versus needing to be like on my laptop here in
Right.
the office and
Okay.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
But but there is an option to have additional admins
Okay.
for
Yeah.
emergency
Just to
situations
help
and
it,
stuff.
yeah.
There's even some automated stuff where if there's a national or state emergency that gets alerted, or even weather alerts, you can opt into. So those will automatically go out and no one will have to even.
We don't
send
even
them.
have to do
Yeah.
that, it just automatically.
But for
feeds.
stuff like this, it
Yeah.
probably will require at least some training for a admin to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think Jeff has his hand up, maybe to
Steve
comment.
Can be live tweeting from the corner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah,
project.
I'll just make it, I'll make it really short again, it's kind of the broken record, but it's important. And Ron and everyone here knows is, one of the biggest issues that residents have brought up around this potential rezoning is that there has been no sponsored in-depth engineering or technical study. And so, with the issues that we have, just how things are currently, the real concerns about what happens if you're upzoned and what does that mean when construction will become even more aggressive and larger and so on and so forth. So just putting that out there it's just something that to keep in the back of our minds. Over.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff. Is that okay?
That concludes my report.
Concludes your report.
Okay.
Thank you. Another excellent, very thorough report. I'm gonna open it up to resident comments now. Are there any residents? Oh, Larry?
What, you thought I wasn't gonna say anything?
No, I'm
No,
calling on
well-
you first. I saw your hand pop up
No,
first.
I just wanted to tell Mike, what you talked about on the leaves, and now you know why some of the old village managers, when you'd call them up, they would say, "Leave me alone." Never mind. Okay, so I talked on I guess it was the 18th, Sarah, is her name Cooper, I think, at Maryland. One of the things that was discussed with her was that the notice to the villagers should make sure they know that this is confidential. And I haven't seen that in the announcements that are being posted. And it matters because some people are really, they don't want to, they have things they'd like to say, but they don't want to create problems.
It is on the very first page of the survey. Once you click on it, I can try to do a better job of making that clear in the emails themselves, but on
Right,
the
so
very
they'll
first page
open
of the
it.
survey, it is
Yeah.
confidential, and I will not see anyone's,
Right.
direct contact
Right.
information.
The other thing I'd like to ask about is, could we hire a specialist, would the council consider this, to resolve the audiovisual issues with meetings? I mean, for years, I've been able to look at Tacoma Park and Rockville and, everybody's sitting all around each other and I don't have echoes and I don't hear, broken chutter, or the loss of things like we have continued almost every meeting. There's an issue. I'm sure that's not, and that's certainly not something that Michael would be a specialist in. I mean, why can't we bring in people that can solve that and upgrade the quality of what happens? So that's something I'm asking you guys to consider. As to the this zoning issue, after the last meeting, Michael and the council members put some excellent information, sent out emails that gave individual village people the ability to quickly qualify to send their stuff in a timely fashion and who to communicate. I thought it was outstanding. My question is, do we have that on the website presently for ongoing issues about the zoning? Where people can just go to the part of the website and see who can I contact on this, who matters, etc. And here's their communication advice or ability. The final thing is, since the way it goes is that, you know, the smaller you are, the lower you are in your structure, the less power you have. So we can't contradict, apparently, the zoning changes in this situation that the county creates. I think that's part of what they're planning to do, is prevent us from doing that. Have we contacted Wall Striker and other of our state representatives to see what legislation we can get them to pass in the state that would override these county actions? And have we thought about that strategy and how to go at it? And them's my question.
Okay.
Comments.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Larry, on your very last point, the state cannot do that, but we are asking the state to clarify what we can do, and to make sure that we can continue to do the building codes that we presently have and make sure that they will continue to be operative. So that is something that we are working with.
You're saying the
right
state
now.
can't pass new legislation that would protect us? I don't
think,
that's true.
from what I know, they are not interested in doing that.
Well,
Yeah.
have we talked to Jeff Wallstriker? And
He's one of the sponsors
Yeah,
of the technical.
He is one of the people that we are dealing with.
He's in support of the amendment to 2509.
Right.
One issue we're dealing with, Larry, is the Governor's Act that was just passed this last legislative session.
Yeah.
The Housing Affordability
Yeah.
Act provides all sorts of density and mixed use bonuses for multifamily projects, and provides that municipal regulations may not unreasonably limit multifamily projects and so on and so forth. And there's this, trend to promote multifamily, and because that's a state law, that's part of the consideration for delegates Carr and Moon, and why they are raising concerns about our proposed amendment. They don't want to see this law frustrate the Governor's Act. And it's also important to keep in mind that when the county council takes zoning actions, they do so as the district council of park and planning. They're actually doing that as a state agency. So when the county adopts zoning laws, they're acting as a state agent. So yeah, it's a tough climb ahead of us, but that's why.
All right, thank you.
That's why, like Marty said, this is one of the most important issues the village has ever faced. It is, in my opinion, the most important issue I've faced in the 17 years I've been your attorney.
Yeah. And I will continue to invite and reach out and cast a net to anyone who can speak to us at that level. So, and hopefully there'll be headliners at our future meetings.
And it is on the website. It's the first thing under About.
Yes. And Michael updates it frequently.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment or a question? Let's see here.
Nope, doesn't look like it.
No?
Okay.
All right. Okay. Okay. Well, my last vote is always in council comments. Any additional comments from my colleagues? I always like to check in with you all.
Higher density is coming. Get ready.
Okay.
Do it smart. Don't do it stupid.
Okay, that's Arthur's PSA. Okay, anybody, anyone else? Okay, all right. Well, on that note, I thank you to everyone who attended tonight's meeting, and happy Thanksgiving to the council, staff, and the VMA residents. Our next council meeting is Thursday, December 12th. You had mentioned that. I'm going to now make a motion to move into a closed session under the Open Meetings Act to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice.
Perfect.
Is there a second?
Aye.
Okay.
Regarding regarding
all
a,
in
a public
oh.
works project.
Regarding a public work project. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Hey.
Thank you.
Okay,
right,
thank you
Thank you. Good
all.
night, everyone.